Jane Fonda, actress, activist, and fitness guru, has been the subject of controversy throughout her career. One of the most contentious moments in her life happened during the Vietnam War when she visited North Vietnam in 1972. Join Facts First as we explore how veterans truly hate her after her controversial photo. The truth about Hanoi Jane. In 1972, Jane Fonda visited North Vietnam as a result of America's involvement there. The actress made several public appearances during this time in support of the North Vietnamese government, which led to her being dubbed Hanoi Jane by her critics. Infamously, she was photographed sitting on an anti-aircraft gun, which many saw as a slap in the face to the American military and the POWs held in North Vietnam. Many Americans saw Fonda's actions as deeply unpatriotic, and she faced severe backlash for her behavior upon her return to the U.S. Some veterans even protested against her and called for her to be tried for treason. At the time, Jane was one of the most popular actresses out there. She felt she should be using her celebrity for good, but she didn't realize the backlash she'd receive. Though Jane received an exceptional amount of hate for her efforts, she wasn't the only celebrity in the world that didn't look too fondly on America's involvement in Vietnam. Other celebrities that notably protested the war include Muhammad Ali, John Legend, Joan Baez, Marlon Brando, and Bob Dylan. Muhammad Ali refused to be drafted into the military, citing his opposition to the Vietnam War and his religious beliefs. He was stripped of his boxing titles and faced legal challenges, but eventually won a Supreme Court case that upheld his right to conscientious objection. John Lennon, meanwhile, turned to activism in full force after breaking away from the Beatles. He was a vocal anti-war activist, using his platform to speak out against the war and participate in protests. He famously staged a bed-in for peace with his wife Yoko Ono in 1969. This resulted in the classic song Give Peace a Chance. Joan Baez was a folk singer who used her celebrity for good during the Vietnam War. She was a prominent anti-war activist all around, performing at protests and rallies and using her music to raise awareness about the war. She also visited North Vietnam in 1972, much like Fonda. Marlon Brando, meanwhile, famously declined his Academy Award for Best Actor in 1973, sending Native American activist Sacheen Littlefeather to accept the award on his behalf. Sacheen went on to speak out against the treatment of Native Americans and the war during his speech. Bob Dylan was initially supportive of the war effort, but eventually became a vocal opponent. He wrote several anti-war songs, including Masters of War and A Hard Rain's a Gonna Fall. It's also worth pointing out that Bob was very close to Joan Baez, and they shared a lot of the same ideals musically and politically. Does Jane Fonda regret her activism? In the decades since the war, Jane Fonda has expressed regret for her actions and has apologized to veterans for any pain she may have caused. But the controversy surrounding her visit to North Vietnam remains a significant part of her legacy. Not only that, but she hasn't really changed. Despite the controversy, Fonda has continued to be a vocal activist and advocate for various causes. Her activism has included advocating for women's rights, speaking out against the Iraq War, and fighting for environmental causes. Fonda has always been a staunch advocate for environmental causes, particularly climate change. In 2019, she launched Fire Drill Days, a weekly rally and civil disobedience campaign in Washington to draw attention to the urgent need for action on climate change. She was arrested multiple times during the protests, along with other activists. Another thing Fonda has always been a long-time advocate for is women's rights. In 2018, she was one of the founders of Women's Media Center Speech Project, which aims to improve the representation of women in the media. She's been a vocal supporter of the Me Too movement and has spoken out against sexual harassment and assault. Unsurprisingly, Fonda was an active critic of the Trump administration and used her platform during his presidency to encourage political engagement and activism. She's also been involved in protests and events like the Women's March and the Families Belong Together rally. In the wake of the Black Lives Matter protests in 2020, Fonda has similarly been an outspoken supporter of racial justice and police reform. She's used her platforms to amplify the voices of activists and organizations working towards these goals. Her recent activist work has focused on a range of issues, including climate change, women's rights, political activism, and racial justice. She's used her celebrity status to draw attention to these causes and has been actively involved in protests, civil disobedience, and other forms of activism. In 2020, she released a book called What Can I Do? My Path from Climate Despair to Action. It details her personal journey towards becoming the notable activist that she is. The book also offers guidance on how individuals can get involved in the fight against climate change. Jane has continued to act and won several awards for her performances in film and television. She recently starred in the Netflix series Grace and Frankie, which was renewed for a 7th and final season in 2021. Jane Fonda is a busy woman. As far as her personal life is concerned, Jane has been married 3 times and has 3 children. In 2020, she revealed she had ended her 8-year relationship with music producer Richard Perry. During the COVID pandemic, Fonda practiced social distancing and was vocal about the importance of following health guidelines to stop the spread of the virus. She's also been open about her struggles with aging and has been an advocate for body positivity and self-acceptance. In 2020, she launched a virtual workout program called Jane Fonda's Workout to help people stay active at home during the pandemic. From her work to her workouts, Jane Fonda is a busy woman. The human side of Jane Fonda. Though Jane has presented herself mostly as a very serious woman who's passionate about real-life issues, there are also some fun tales about the actress that can lighten the mood. One funny story about Jane happened when she was filming On Golden Pond in 1981 with her father, the equally famous performer Henry Fonda. During one scene where they were supposed to be walking on a dock, Jane accidentally fell into the water. According to Jane, her father's reaction was priceless. He looked down at her in the water and said, quote, "I knew this would happen. I just knew it." Meanwhile, the crew rushed over to help Jane out of the water and dry her off. Despite the mishap, the scene turned out to be one of the most memorable in the film. In fact, the director, Mark Rydell, decided to keep the footage of Jane falling into the water in the final cut of the movie. If any Vietnam War veterans ever find themselves holding too hard of a grudge against the actress, thinking back to this funny story involving her and her father could be a good antidote. Jane has stirred up plenty of controversy with her activism, though she remains just as passionate about real-world issues as ever. Now it's time to hear from you. Did you know that Jane was so strongly against the Vietnam War, and that she received a great deal of backlash for it? Let us know in the comment section below.